Look, let's talk about BlackRock. You've probably heard the name, usually whispered in the same tone people use for the IRS or We Need to Talk, and for good reason. BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager, which is a fancy way of saying they manage an obscene amount of money, trillions. That's a number so big, if it were seconds, it would stretch back long before humans even figured out how to grunt. They don't just own stocks, they are moving into what they call real assets. This isn't about collecting rare beanie babies. It's about owning the fundamental building blocks of our lives. Hospitals, airports, water systems, and, yes, the power lines that bring electricity to your home. Now, on the other side of this equation, you have Minnesota Power. For over 150,000 people in northeastern Minnesota, this isn't just some faceless corporation. It's the company that keeps the lights on, the heat running in the dead of winter, and the TV powered for binge-watching shows about emotionally distant detectives. It's a utility, a regulated monopoly that, in theory, is supposed to serve the public interest. For generations, Minnesota Power has been a local fixture, employing local people and answering, at least in some capacity, to the community it serves. It's part of the landscape, as familiar as a frozen lake or the sound of a snowmobile. So, why on earth would a Wall Street behemoth like BlackRock suddenly develop a keen interest in a regional power company in Minnesota? The answer, my friends, is two letters: AI. That's right, artificial intelligence. AI data centers are fantastically, stupendously power-hungry. They consume electricity like a kid eats Halloween candy. All of it, immediately. BlackRock's own CEO, Larry Fink, has basically said that the future of AI depends on controlling the last mile of power delivery. They see a gold rush coming and they want to own the company selling the picks and shovels, or in this case, the megawatts. This isn't just a simple business transaction, it represents a fundamental shift in strategy. For years, BlackRock was content to own small slices of thousands of companies, but now, they're moving from being a passive investor to an active owner. They don't just want a piece of the pie. They want to own the entire bakery, the wheat fields, the delivery trucks, and the recipes. This move on Minnesota Power isn't a one-off, it's a playbook. They are actively seeking to take entire infrastructure systems private, moving them from public markets and local accountability into the opaque world of private equity, where the only thing that truly matters is the bottom line. Now, if you think BlackRock is just writing a check directly to Minnesota Power, you are underestimating the glorious, unnecessary complexity of high finance. This deal is structured like a Russian nesting doll of corporate entities, where each layer you open reveals another slightly more confusing company inside. Here's how it works. BlackRock isn't buying Minnesota Power. Instead, BlackRock recently bought a company called Global Infrastructure Partners, or GIP. GIP is a massive private equity firm that specializes in, you guessed it, infrastructure. And it's GIP that is now trying to buy Elite, which is the parent company of Minnesota Power. So, to recap the corporate conga line, BlackRock owns GIP, which wants to own Elite, which owns Minnesota Power. It's a structure so convoluted it feels designed to make your eyes glaze over, allowing the deal to slip by while you're still trying to draw a diagram to figure out who owns whom. This setup isn't an accident, it creates distance. When your electricity bill eventually skyrockets, who do you complain to? The local utility, its parent company, the private equity firm that owns the parent company, or the world's largest asset manager that owns the private equity firm. By the time you figure it out, your power has been shut off for non-payment. The entire point of this private equity playbook is to make money, and fast. The strategy is simple and brutal. First, you buy a stable, necessary company like a utility that everyone needs, often by loading up the company you just bought with massive amounts of debt. That's right, they use the company's own assets as collateral to buy it, meaning Minnesota Power and its customers would essentially be on the hook for the loan used to purchase them. It's like forcing someone to pay for the privilege of being taken hostage. It's a bold, if sociopathic, business model. Once the company is acquired, the next step is to squeeze it for every last drop of profit. You run it as cheaply as possible, which often means cutting the workforce, slashing maintenance budgets, and fighting tooth and nail against any investment that doesn't lead to a quick return. The goal is not long-term stability or community well-being. The goal is to fatten the company up for a sale in a few years. They plan to buy it, strip it for parts, and then flip it to the next private equity firm for a huge profit, leaving the company and its customers to deal with the debt and the decaying infrastructure. Unsurprisingly, a whole lot of people in Minnesota are not exactly thrilled about this plan. Community members, local leaders, and advocacy groups like the Sierra Club and the Private Equity Stakeholder Project are lining up to oppose the deal. Their concerns aren't just vague anxieties, they are specific, urgent, and backed by a history of what happens when private equity gets its hands on essential services. The number one fear is, of course, rate hikes. When a company's primary goal shifts from providing a service to maximizing shareholder returns, the easiest way to boost profits is to charge customers more for the exact same thing. You don't have to look far for a cautionary tale. Just look at what happened in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. In 2014, the local utility, UPPCO, was bought by a private equity firm. What followed was a masterclass in customer exploitation. Customers were slammed with 4 separate bill hikes in the years that followed. The company was passed from one private equity owner to another, each one taking its pound of flesh before selling it off. For the people living there, it meant their electricity bills became a source of constant financial dread, all to enrich a series of faceless investors hundreds of miles away. This is the future that opponents in Minnesota see coming down the pike. Beyond just jacking up prices, there are serious concerns about the quality and reliability of the service itself. A utility isn't a tech startup where you can move fast and break things. When you break things at a power company, people lose heat in February, or power lines aren't properly maintained, leading to blackouts and safety hazards. The private equity model of aggressive cost-cutting often translates to fewer workers maintaining the grid and less investment in crucial upgrades. It prioritizes short-term profit over the long-term health of the infrastructure that an entire region depends on to function. Then, there's the environmental angle. Minnesota has a state law mandating a transition to 100% carbon-free electricity by the year 2040. That requires massive, long-term investment in renewable energy sources like wind and solar. A private equity owner with a 5 to 7 year exit strategy has absolutely no incentive to make those investments. In fact, they have an incentive not to. For a company the size of BlackRock, the fines for violating state environmental laws are just a rounding error, a simple cost of doing business. They could simply ignore the mandate, run the existing fossil fuel plants into the ground, and sell the company before the long-term consequences come due. So, what happens next? This isn't a done deal. Because electricity is a critical public service, the buyout can't happen without a green light from the Minnesota Public Utility Commission, a 5-person board appointed by the governor. They are the gatekeepers tasked with deciding if this sale is in the public's best interest, and the early signs aren't great for BlackRock. An administrative law judge who reviewed the case has already recommended against the deal, citing a lack of transparency and a failure to show how it would benefit Minnesotans. The final decision rests with the commission, making them the last line of defense for the state's ratepayers. The fight in Minnesota has sparked a broader conversation that is long overdue. Who should own our essential infrastructure? The answer from a growing number of people is, well, maybe we should. In response to this very deal, the city of Superior, Wisconsin, which is served by another Allied-owned utility, is actively exploring the feasibility of buying its local grid back. This idea, known as municipalization or public ownership, is gaining traction. It's based on the radical notion that essential services like power and water should be run for the public good, not for private profit, with any surplus revenue reinvested back into the system or the community. This entire saga forces us to confront a fundamental question. Is electricity a commodity to be bought and sold by the highest bidder on Wall Street, or is it a public right, an essential resource that should be managed with accountability and a long-term vision for the community? The private equity model is fundamentally incompatible with the obligations of a public utility. One is built for extraction and quick profits, the other is meant for stability, service, and the public welfare. You cannot serve two masters, especially when one is a community of people, and the other is a spreadsheet in a private equity office. Ultimately, the decision in Minnesota will send a powerful message. If the deal is approved, it could open the floodgates for private equity to gobble up utilities across the country, transforming a stable, regulated industry into a high-stakes casino where customers always lose. But if it's rejected, it could signal a turning point, a moment where communities and regulators stand up and declare that our most vital resources are not for sale. It's a choice between a future powered by and for the community, or one where we are all just tenants paying rent to the landlord of everything.